Over the years, I've kind of maintained this as my philosophy to be extremely decisive in what I do, to be laser focused when it comes to customers, understand their needs, to solve their problems, and results. Results do matter. Nothing should stop you from going where you want to go.
How are you leading from the front?
India is clearly at an inflection point when it comes to energy transition. The transition is real. When it comes to execution, number one, you should make sure that you deliver every project at performance or better, on time or earlier, and at cost or lower. Burnouts are a function of boredom.
So, ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning, good afternoon, or good evening to you, depending on where you are joining us from, for this very special episode of Towards a Better World on Thinkly, a platform that hosts content from leading thinkers of the contemporary world. This is a platform where I, Ayon Banerjee, in my personal capacity and not part of any day job, invite and speak to inspirational people from all walks of life. Because I strongly feel that there are only two ways to bring about the change that we seek around us. One, be the change ourselves. And number two, celebrating the right role models for the society to follow. As an author and a social commentator, I often come across complaints from corporate professionals, especially young Indians, that we do not have enough homegrown Indian role models whose journeys, if documented, could serve as a great source of motivation that's relevant to their careers and their lives. We couldn't probably have found a better guest for that than whom we have today. Deepesh Nanda is one of the best known faces in the Indian power sector and who has the distinction of leading top leadership roles in two of the most respected organizations in the world, General Electric Company and the Tata Group. And what makes today's session even more special for me is that I have known Deepesh personally for over 14 years now, having worked with him and seen him in action from close quarters. But even beyond what his business card titles say, Deepesh has been a senior colleague of mine, a guide, a sounding board, and a very good friend of mine over the years, and someone I have a lot of respect for. There's a ton of learning in this gentleman's journey, and it will be my pleasure and in my endeavor today to bring out some of them for the viewers who are taking time to join us. So without further ado, let me welcome Deepesh. Deepesh Nanda, welcome to Towards a Better World.
Thank you, Ayan. Thanks for having me here. Very happy to be here with you.
Thank you, Deepesh. No, it's just your modest self as usual that you're saying that, but I cannot thank you enough for taking time off out of your busy schedule to do this, because I know that you are currently traveling and you are taking this call from somewhere near the airport, and I just can't be grateful enough for this. So let me dive into it, Deepesh. So, whenever I think of this whole energy transition thing, which is the buzzword of our industry, as you know. And I cannot think of any leader, any contemporary Indian leader other than yourself who kind of embodies it. In fact, your own career journey itself symbolizes this transition, doesn't it? I mean, from being a CEO leading gas power business in one of the most respected American MNCs to leading the renewable energy business of India's most respected MNC. I mean, what an amazing journey that you've had, Deepesh. And while we will unwrap your journey and your leadership toolkit for our viewers, I always request our guests to give us a view of their page one so that, we can start with the human being and then we get into the leader. So, Deepesh, could you please share about your early career and any particular point, which could be, any assignment, decision, or maybe another individual whose influence got you started on your leadership journey, Deepesh?
Oh, thank you, Ayan. Kind words. Thank you very much. Clearly those early formative days, they led to what happened after that. I actually started as an application slash sales engineer many years back. It's been 28, 29 years back. And the turning point in my career was actually an assignment that was given to me in those early days, the first few years of my career. It was an extremely challenging assignment to handle the energy sector in the western part of India in Gujarat. Gujarat was just opening up both in the oil and gas business, the refinery business, the petrochemical business, and then the power plants. The challenge that I took up was one where the market share of the company was very, very small. We had huge competition. And that journey taught me the importance of decisiveness, customer focus, solving problems, and then delivering results. When I look back, I think that kind of became my philosophy of leadership. A mentor back then also was instrumental in letting me know and kind of trained me in the art of being confident but more important, the importance of integrity in everything that you do. Over the years, I've kind of maintained this as my philosophy to be extremely decisive in what I do, to be laser focused when it comes to customers, understand their needs, to solve their problems, and results. Results do matter. And you do all of this with an element of integrity. Nothing should stop you from going where you want to go.
That's such a great and succinct summary, Deepesh. I think you've said so much in so little words. I mean, you talked of customer centricity, and and we'll talk about this as we go ahead. And you talked of integrity and then decision making, and all of these are I associate with you. And if I need to define a paragraph defining the leadership essentials from Deepesh, these will all be part of it. But before we get into your leadership toolkit, Dipesh, because not every day that we get to speak to a leader in the industry and a very upfront industry in the front, like the renewable energies in India. So I want to start, with an industry view for this conversation and your current assignment, because we know that the world is watching India as our country demonstrates strong intent and visible steps towards our net zero commitment under the present government, and which is very commendable, the work that's been done. So we would like to understand from you as a leader in the forefront, your message to our viewers, how India as a country is faring as compared to the rest of the world in our commitment to net zero. And secondly, these are two-part questions. And the second part is, how is Tata Power Renewable Energy Limited, your organization, and you are one of the most respected organizations in this space in India. How are you leading from the front?
So India is clearly at an inflection point when it comes to energy transition. The transition is real and it's happening at a pace that one imagined. If you zoom out a little bit and if you look at the Asia context, Asia is a very compelling continent, and the macroeconomics of Asia are fantastic in terms of the diversity that it offers for you to analyze Asia. At one level, you have part of Asia, which is Japan, South Korea, Taiwan. Each of them, they have a GDP per capita of anywhere between 40,000 to 50,000 US dollars. You have China, which is in the range of $12,000 to $15,000. Then you have Australia, $10,000. Then you have Malaysia, you have Indonesia, Thailand, $8,000. Then you have South Asia, which is India, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, $2,500. That kind of spells opportunity in terms of where this economy will grow. So if the energy transition is real, which is what we believe it is, and there are tangible results for us to measure, the growth prospect of this sector is phenomenal. At Tata Power, we have three clusters. So we have a generation business where we have a conventional businesses, which is the thermal business and the hydro business. We have transmission and distribution. We distribute electricity in Mumbai, in Delhi, of Orissa. And then we have the renewables business, which I run. In the renewables business, the way we have configured ourselves is that we have a generation portfolio within renewables. So we are a large genco. We have an install base of 5 gigawatt. We're building another 5 as we speak. We have an EPC company that builds large-scale solar plants. We have a huge backlog, close to $2.5 billion. Then we have a manufacturing business, large-scale manufacturing. We've just commissioned a massive 4.3 gigawatt scale cell and module manufacturing plant in Tamil Nadu. Total capacity across 2 locations, one in Bangalore and one in Tamil Nadu, is almost 5 gigawatt of localized manufacturing of cell technology, which is not that easy. And then also modules, and we make the entire range. Then we have the corporate PPA business. So any industry that wants to go green in the joint venture model, as how the Indian government has defined, the off-taker takes an investment and gets a rebate. That's a thriving business. There's a lot of in-house Tata demand for companies like Tata Steel, Tata Motors, and so on. All that gets taken care of within that vertical. Then we have a business which was new to me, but it's a fantastic business, which is rooftop solar. We are the largest in the country when it comes to rooftop solar. We play the end-to-end game of not just supply, but we install, commission, maintain. We have a huge market share. We are like 25, 26% market share. And that business has a lot of tailwind, just thanks to the policies of the Indian government. And lastly, we're also in the business of electric vehicle charging infrastructure. Again, we're the largest in the country. In fact, yesterday, we just announced that we have hit 100,000 chargers across the country. So these 6 businesses come together as Tata Power Renewable Energy Limited. We have BlackRock as an investor in the company. Fantastic business. In the next 3 years, we should be in the range of 12 to 15 gigawatt as a genco. And all the signs of us accelerating the energy transition. So the difference, between many in the industry and what I've seen here at Tata Power is that we not only set the ambitious targets, but there is massive focus on execution. And I think that's what sets us apart in terms of actually delivering everyday results. So we are constructing at a rate of 15 megawatts of capacity is being built out every day at Tata Power.
15 megawatts a day.
15
Wow.
megawatts. That's the measure that we keep asking ourselves, that look, have we built 15 megawatts yesterday? Did we
Wow,
win? That's the rate at which we've been growing.
Beyond my worldview perceptions. I mean, and so much. I mean, so much you said. I mean, I'm still absorbing it, Deepesh. I mean, you talked of back orders of more than 2.5 billion. You're talking of so much about solar. You spoke about the battery charging business. I know that because whenever I'm in India, I see the Tata Power charging business, and it's kind of growing and sprouting all over India. And these are all new aspects for me, at least as someone from the same industry, but which I probably am still learning, because I have a very niche view about, because I'm from the wind part of it in the renewable energy segment, and I understand what you are doing in wind, but beyond that, what you are doing in solar, and that's the big one, and which you said, the rooftop solar and stuff like that, and I totally agree. And I always felt that India, why can't India be like another Australia? And I think that's what is the gap, and which you are filling as Tata Power Renewables. So fantastic. I mean, so it's amazing, Deepesh, and thanks for sharing with us. And I'm sure that our viewers are also learning and hearing that what great things an Indian organization is doing with under an Indian CEO and manufacturing in India. So that's very important, a very proud emotion for us, Deepesh. So Deepesh, we will talk about the industry as we go forward, but I'm sure that the young leaders who have joined in, they're very eager, because you are, and I can say this with you, you are quite a bit of a celebrity in the Indian corporate world, and especially in our industry. So they are very eager to learn about leadership essentials from someone like you, Deepesh. So, and as someone who has witnessed you in action at GE, what I've always admired about your style was that you are an outlier in a good sense, and you are also a non-conformist, again in a good sense, when it comes to making a quick and a lasting impact. So when you were answering, you just mentioned, and we'll kind of tie it to that. So whether it was your commercial intensity, your customer centricity, your relentless drive to win all the time, and your approachable nature, your humble and approachable nature, you have very unique leadership style that comes very naturally to you. So again, this is again a two-part question, Deepesh. So how much of your leadership style is natural, and how much of it is learned? And the second part of the question is, did this transition from General Electric to the Tata Group call for any tweaks in your leadership playbook? Because as an outsider to the Tata Group, I have a certain notion about how the Tata Group culture is, and I also know what the General Electric culture is. In my view, they are very different organizations in terms of how they approach their go-to-market and their leadership styles. So as someone who has navigated this journey and has been successful on both sides of the table, are you still the same person that we used to know you when you were in G? So that's the question.
Great questions. Thank you so much. Leadership traits, most of them are innate, is what I would say. I was always this ambitious person. I always wanted to be successful. There was this flair for the external world. I would be decisive after I've analyzed data. I wouldn't hesitate to take measured risk. That did not change. That was always there. But then through my working career, I've had several moments where I had to learn. I had to learn things, especially based on the feedback that I kept getting. And one feedback that I got always was that, look, you're a quick learner. You take feedback positively. In fact, there was a amazing time in my career where GE was kind enough to get me a coach, and I worked with that coach. At the end of the coaching session, my only request from GE was that, can I extend this coaching period for another set of time, a combination of learning as you grow. Anil Sajdev was my coach, or is my coach even today, is my coach and mentor. Amazing sessions with Anil. I would enter into his office and I would sit down, and Anil would ask me just one simple question. And then I would talk and Anil would take notes. And my idea was that somebody's going to, pontificate, going to tell me about things, how to do things or how not to. But here was Anil who just listened to me talk. And at the end of it, he would take copious notes. And at the end of it, I would realize myself as to what am I talking and what are the changes that I need to bring about in my, say, operating style. That was a positive, life-changing experience. And that changed the perspective of how I would look at things, my whole approach towards appreciative inquiry, how I would work with teams. So that was one part of my leadership journey. The other is people. I think building trust-based relationships with the team is extremely important. Once you get to work with people on a trust-based relationship, I think a combination of business acumen and strategic thinking, along with having good people skills, the combination of this, once you embrace that point, then I think your leadership journey becomes that much more enjoyable, and it accelerates. And it accelerates. People would like to work with you. To your point, what you mentioned, you should have the flexibility to hold different viewpoints at the same time, right? And then be decisive. Take the decision that you feel is best as a leader. There would be things that only you can decide at a point in time. Don't hesitate to take those calls. You may not win always. You may not get it right always. But then you will keep learning. And if you have this flexibility to pivot based on the feedback that you get, and if you're coachable, I think these are the traits that will keep you on the right track.
Thanks. I think you completely revalidate, the kind of view I wanted to summarize about you. And, on decisiveness, Deepesh, you mentioned a lot of things on Anil's coaching. And I totally agree that, I'll come to this in a subsequent question about your malleability in terms of how you kind of transformed yourself and your style. It's not that you improved yourself, but you've changed your leadership style, I will say. So you were a great leader even 14 years back, but you are a different leader today. So we'll come to that. And we just had a session with John Flannery, and John. So John spoke so fondly about you during his session, and he mentioned the same thing, exactly the same thing which you said about decisiveness, is that you not always make the right decisions. It's not compulsory to be hung up on perfection and always making the right decision, but making the decision is very important. Because today in this business world, we see a lot of decision paralysis, and leaders try to play to not lose instead of trying to win. And that's what is creating this decision paralysis. And you are certainly not one of those people who has a decision paralysis, and I have seen you in action, so I know that. So this kind of nicely segues into the next question which I had, and which is a very kind of an emotional question for mid managers, and there will be many mid managers who are listening in. So this is on the subject of growth. So there are middle managers. There are a lot of middle managers, Deepesh, who aspire to grow into large P&L leadership roles like what you have grown into. And we obviously know that not every high performing functional leader makes a CEO. But I have studied your career, like I as an author, I study organizations, I study other leaders, and I've seen you evolve, as I just said. I've seen you evolve over the years. And part of it is obviously attributed to your intense desire, your intense competitiveness to keep yourself ahead in the race, keep yourself updated with industry know-how and apply it, which is very important. But there's also an element, a USP that you bring to the table on how you blend processes. And you kind of answered it when you were saying answering the previous question. You kind of blend processes, your people-centric leadership style, and you lead teams to win. So my question is, what would be your advice to how middle managers need to work on themselves if they aspire to get the top job in an intensely competitive, multicultural environment? And both these phrases are important, because when I talk of intensely competitive, I know, and you know, Deepesh, that the gas power business in South Asia has not been a smooth ride over the past decade with all the regulations and stuff like that. But you are one of those rare ones who has navigated it very successfully into a great streak, a great career streak in the last decade. So you know how to navigate intense competition. And when it comes to culture, we know we both work for GE, and in GE you work for multicultural teams and you lead multicultural teams, and now you are working successfully in an organization that is an epitome for the right cultural legacy that an Indian successful Indian organization has, and the most respected Indian organization. So how the question is, what is your advice? How do middle managers need to work on themselves if they aspire to get to a corner office in an intensely competitive multicultural environment?
And a few examples of tough, challenging that have come my way as an example to motivate middle managers to embrace tough and challenging assignments. The elements of hard work and dexterity need to be tested, and you need to convince yourself that you have the capability to compete at the highest level of competition in an assignment which is extremely tough and challenging. Something that you've done, when we went to Bangladesh. I know John Flannery, one fine afternoon, was mentioning that, look, the India gas market has dried up. Why don't you look at Bangladesh? I was a little concerned that are these guys shifting me to Dhaka? And I'd never been to Bangladesh. So he said, no, this is an add-on responsibility. Why don't you look at Bangladesh? I wanted to stay at a particular place in Bangladesh. Naushad Ali, who had just been hired back then, advised Yamini to book me elsewhere. And then I said, no, I'll be early for my meeting. I'll kind of start early for the meeting. I was so late. I was late by 2 hours for that meeting. And that kind of, again, gave me the impression that, look, the growth prospects in this country are fantastic. One thing led to another. You guys had set the base for the growth, which lasted till around 2015. So we did Bibiana, we did Meghna Ghat.
Yeah.
And then uncertain
And
meeting.
I take a small credit for that, Deepesh.
All the credit, actually.
No, those two projects, yeah, they are I have very fond memories. Yeah, sorry. So
in 2015, again, uncertainty knocks at our doors. Bangladesh also runs out of natural gas. It was then that we had the gumption to go back to General Electric and say that, can we go and participate in an FSRU business, which is completely outside the domain of the work that we did. You also need leadership backing, but that leadership backing is given to a functional leader or a middle management leader, as long as they see that, look, there is somebody who is willing to take the responsibility. There is somebody who is willing to get into the details and to make sure that they have looked at every possible angle to keep the business safe and to make the business profitable, and to do it within a finite span of time. So when we went down and explained that, we take an equity position, we get a big partner to take the balance equity position, we get an FSRU in the country, it is on a lease basis, it is completely back-ended by a contract from the Bangladesh government, there is a sovereign guarantee, there are no records of any default, the management starts believing. But to get to that point, it calls for a lot of hard work. It calls for immense hard work, a lot of networking, the kind of trips that we would have made there, and the kind of partnerships that we would have built. And this ability to make things happen is extremely important. All this happens once you have an element of positivity and optimism. You might be as wrong as a pessimist, but you're far happier as you keep executing. And then once you take it through the process, right, leadership wants to hear from middle management leaders a convincing story, right? And that's a function of how well you've prepared. And that's a function of how hard you worked at it. One thing led to another. Management was convinced that these guys will do a good job. We got the approvals. We made an investment in an FSRU, which was completely outside GE's domain. What then later became the first gas to power project. There were a few other examples, well, like how we did the gasification project. Or for that matter, now here in Tata Power, we're trying to participate in complex tenders where we will replace a thermal electron 1:1. And the load curve that's been given today, we have the ability to replicate the exact load curve with a combination of wind, solar, batteries. And once you do this, management is looking for a convincing answer that what's the diligence with which you've gone about it? Have you taken care of the technology? Have you looked at the contingencies that you park? Have you looked at what's the financing cost? Have you addressed, the risk parameters? And at the end of it, does it meet the returns requirements of the company? If it does, then you will get the backing. After that, it's ruthless execution. Again, another mentor of mine, now in GE, uh, kept telling me that, look, it's all about execution. You should get three things right. This was John Rice, actually. He said that, look, when it comes to execution, number one, you should make sure that you deliver every project at performance or better, on time or earlier, and at cost or lower. If you have these three parameters, everything else will cascade within these three parameters. But the power plant should meet the performance or exceed. It should be on time or it should be earlier, and it should be at cost or lesser. And then later comes Larry Culp, who ingrained the lessons of lean management like nobody else could have done. I owe a lot to that phase of my career to Larry and Scott, where GE leaders went through training on lean. You with GE, so you can reflect on that entire analysis of leader standard work or SQDC. That when you transition roles, a few things stay with you. One of them that stays with you is that process rigor with which GE kind of came out of the situation which they had found themselves in, thanks to Larry. So I'd say that for middle management leaders, be ambitious, be hardworking, take up tough and challenging assignments. That will be the differentiating factor between you and the rest.
Awesome. I think, Deepesh, there is so much information in your answer, and, I'm still assimilating and I'm trying to connect the dots because, a lot of names that you mentioned, we know them and, we've learned from them. And just for the viewers, so Deepesh mentioned John Rice. John Rice was the ex vice chairman of GE and great G, old school G leader. So, Deepesh, you've been fortunate to have been mentored by him. And Deepesh mentioned Larry Culp, of course, who is the current chairman of GE Aerospace, but who was the gentleman who succeeded John Flannery and who was instrumental in transforming GE to what it has become now and coming out of a slightly difficult phase that we had found ourselves in. So fantastic answer, Deepesh. And so the takeaway for young managers is that take more tough assignments. And I know, Deepesh, because I'm going to say this in the next question probably, that I know that you are somebody who never shied away from market challenges because you were so customer centric and you were always with the customer. So you spent more time with customers than with your colleagues. So I think that's what gave you an external focus and a worldview, which kind of helped you even to navigate through a decade where people, I was one of them who lost hope because I thought that India has run out of gas. There is no future for a gas person. So as a gas salesperson, what do I have in India? So that's the reason I left India, Deepesh. So I think, but you were someone, in retrospect today, I think that you slugged it out and you made it happen. You went to Bangladesh, you signed all those contracts, you went into alternate avenues and you kind of made it work. So that's great learning for young leaders. Don't give up. Take new challenges and deliver on the challenges. That's how you build credibility. Thanks, Deepesh. Great answer. Thank you so much. So now, Deepesh, moving on, if I'll talk of, when we talk of corporate leadership, so I'll bring in two different topics, which are probably distinct in themselves, but they kind of, I'm going to bring them together because they are somewhat relevant to your leadership style. And both these things are not always spoken of in the right spirit, but they are, one is authenticity and the second is organizational politics. So coming to politics, we all know that politics exists and we all deny being part of it, of course, and yet we all acknowledge that it's the biggest contributor to the rut that brings organizations down. And I mentioned earlier, Deepesh, about you being an outlier in a good sense again, because I never found you to be political as a leader. And I'm not saying this, Deepesh, because you are on the show, because I don't need to kind of say this because we work for different companies now. But this is a genuine admission and a compliment. I never found you to be political as a leader, and I especially remember how you barely spend any time in the office except maybe for the first day of the week, and you'd spend the rest of the week meeting customers, solving their problems. And what was very impressive, which I found in you, besides the external focus, because we would all look at people around and who are behaving in which way, so was that you had other aspects to your personality besides what you brought just to your day job. So your habit of reading, for instance, you are such an avid reader and you are so well informed about world affairs, and you have a very broad worldview. And pardon me for this, Deepesh, I'd like to share this small nugget with the viewers. So this was like 2021, and I was writing my second book, and I was requesting endorsements from industry leaders like Deepesh to, if they could write one or two lines which I could put in the front and the back covers. And everybody else sent their endorsements in, and Deepesh also sent it in, of course. But what he requested me was that it was a weekend, and he said that, Ayan, can you give me a few hours? I said, fine, please take your time. And he actually read through the entire manuscript, and he read the entire manuscript of a 275 280 pages book, and then he sent me an endorsement by afternoon, and it had a word in it for which, Deepesh, now I can confess that I had to look up in the dictionary to understand the meaning of that word, but that's besides the point. So what I wanted to say, and it's not just about business literature, Deepesh. I mean, we have had conversations about Shakespeare, about Murakami, and whatnot. So you have a lot of external focus, and today we hear people complaining a lot that their careers get stagnant because of politics, and they say that we can't stay authentic because unless we behave in a certain way, our careers can't go ahead. But you are someone who has proved it otherwise all through your career. At least in the last 14 years, I have seen you in action. So you have nullified politics by refusing to participate in it, and you have stayed authentic. So my question is, how does someone manage to navigate a career by staying apolitical and also by staying authentic? Long question, sorry, but I need your answer, Deepesh.
I think, to stay apolitical, you just need to be laser focused on the work that you do. Very early in my career, I found myself busy at work, and I used to enjoy being busy at work. I used to get feedback from my office colleagues that why don't you take some time off? But then the excitement of delivering results was so high that there just wasn't time available to gossip, hobnob. Just no time. I mean, I would advise youngsters and everybody else listening to this, is that if you back yourself up with genuine work, and if you're laser focused at the assignment at hand, listen, there's just one opportunity out there, right? You have signed up for this assignment or the assignment that you're doing, and then what better than giving it your best? It kind of came to me as a very obvious thing to do. And then when it came to solving problems, there was a point in time in life, and through reading, I used to question myself that what makes you happy, right? So many things make you happy, or with your family you're happy, and so on and so forth. But then I think if you look at that question from a problem solving point of view, when you solve a problem, right, there's a direct correlation between problem solving and happiness. Completely, there's no concept of politics then in your life, because you're just laser focused on the work that you do. Reading came by because there was a nice library close to my apartment in Chennai. So as a boy, I actually grew up in Chennai. They used to charge maybe 25 paise or 50 paise for a 3-day rental of a book. My mom would be after me if I did not finish it on time, because it would cost us money. They would charge us extra. That led to a phase in life where I started watching quiz programs on television, and a young Derek O'Brien giving away, a Maruti 800 car to the winner of the brand equity quiz kind of left me thinking that, because my entire childhood was on a two-wheeler. And I was thinking that, how do people get money, to buy a four-wheeler? I thought that this is a good way to do it. And I started, going for quiz competitions in Chennai. And I was completely flabbergasted that how is it possible for someone to answer a question within a few seconds? And the question comes, from thin air on any topic. And you have people who go on the buzzer and start answering. There was another good friend of mine who then, partnered me, and then we would start reading up a little bit, take part in quiz competitions, which became a pretty serious profession for me between the years, I think, 2001 and 2005.
But
I feel
even in GE, Deepesh, sorry, I mean,
I
you
feel
were, I remember that you and Sid Ghoshal used to be partners in the quiz competition. Sid and I were speaking the other day, and he was saying that Deepesh would know all the answers. I mean, so,
no, I wouldn't. But then, for the topics, you just go by your instincts as long as you've. But it actually ends up also spoiling your reading habit, because each time you read, now you're looking for a question.
yeah,
But that phase of life was fantastic. I think that helped me balance the tough part of the work that was happening there and all the results that you had to achieve. And then it would immediately switch to me going out for a quiz contest with another colleague of mine,
sure.
uh, broaden the horizons of what to do. And that continued in life. I love music like many of us do. I love to watch movies like many of us do.
Mhm.
Then every day morning, then you would come back and you would set the agenda, for the year, for the quarter, for the.
Awesome, awesome. Lot of material in your answer, Deepesh. So, coming to your quizzing habits, and I just mentioned that you were Deepesh for the viewers. Deepesh was our star quiz contest winner in GE when he was in GE, and Deepesh, this is a very personality nuance that I've noticed in you, and we've never spoken on this, but I'll tell you this. I have seen whenever you speak to somebody new and whom you don't know, and this includes when you and I spoke for the first time, I always see that you have so many questions to ask that person. So it is a very typical personality nuance not many people have, because most people are so full of themselves that they start about talking about themselves. What's my opinion? This is what I think, blah blah blah. But with you, I mean, just the other day, we were at your office in Mumbai, and I know my sales director Raghu was with me, and you sat with him, and you are this big CEO of a big company, but you spend 10 minutes just asking Raghu questions, and this is a very innate habit that you have, and it's a very great habit, and it puts people completely at ease, and in your spell. So that's amazing. And you mentioned movies, Deepesh. We have so many questions coming in. I don't know if we'll get time to answer all of them. I have a small rapid fire 3 or 4 questions. Then we'll get into the audience questions, if it's okay with you, Deepesh.
Okay.
So just because I'm loving the conversation, because your personality beyond your business card title, beyond the big CEO that you are, is coming across, and that's what we want to bring it out for the young leaders who aspire to become like you. So quickly, just a few questions, Deepesh. You mentioned about movies, and you enjoy watching movies. So who is your favorite movie star, and what is your favorite movie?
It may sound as a cliche, but it's Shah Rukh Khan, Dilwale. Nothing can beat that.
Oh my God, there's a high-fi there. Nothing beats Shah Rukh Khan, right? And we spoke, and when he came back with Pathan, and you and I went out for lunch, I think, when you were in Kale, and we were discussing Pathan, and I remember that. And that's a big high-fi, Deepesh. Thank you for that. So if you are not a corporate leader, what career would you have been in?
I would have been a Gujarati businessman. When I was in my 10th standard or 11th standard, my maths teacher was contemplating on publishing a maths guide. And then he was chatting up with a few of us that how do we go about this? And then we said, why don't we do it together? Why don't we just type it out, take a printout, and go print it?
Mhm.
So those entrepreneurial skills were always there, and my mom would be after me that, are you going to do your academics or are you going to do this stuff?
Mhm.
But if not in the corporate world, I would have probably been on my own, been a Gujarati businessman.
Which part of Gujarat does your family originally come from?
They come from Saurashtra.
Saurashtra. Kathiawadi. So you are a Kathiawadi.
I am a Kathiawadi.
Perfect. So this was not one of the rapid fire questions, but for the audience, just for the audience's know-how. So Deepesh is a university topper in his engineering, and he's been recognized as one of the distinguished alumni of his university, and he's academically very good. I mean, he comes across as this humble person. He comes across as he's this everyman, but he's academically very sharp. And if you need to work with him to know that. And so Deepesh, the third question. What's your advice to leaders to prevent burnout, physical and mental?
Have a balanced life. I mean, again, sounds like a very obvious thing, but then work hard. I think uh, this might be a little controversial for me to say, but burnouts are a function of boredom. if you're interested in what you do, you will take care of yourself from the burnout perspective. Because if you're successful, you will find ways and means to make sure. There are two types of stresses, and I'm actually thinking on my feet. One is that you put in effort, a lot of effort, and the result is negative. That's the burnout part. The other is that you put in a lot of effort, and then the outcome is positive. Less burnout or no burnout. The more you do the latter, the more successful you are, the less burnout that happens. And then, of course, have take some time out, because you will get perspective, right? In India, we seldom do that. In I do take at least two short vacations. One half, the first half, I take a vacation, and then maybe do a overseas vacation in the second half. But even when I'm on vacation, I must confess there's this urge to come back. But at least that little break gives you perspective, and you sharpen the axe and then come back. But I'd say that for me, it's always been about work, and I have health as well, right? I mean, keep a focus on health. I learned it the hard way, the importance of getting a good 8 hours night's rest. Did a lot of reading. I used to weigh like 99 kgs just 2 years back. I'm 78 today. And that was a very conscious way on. I did a lot of reading again as to what it takes for you to maintain your weight. Yoga, right? Again, may sound something which is obvious to do, but then just push yourself into a routine. I think the importance of a routine can never be overemphasized. Be it your habits when it comes to reading, how you consume information, the kind of material you read, the books that you read, the kind of exercise regime that you have. I'll re-emphasize your sleep pattern, what you eat, how much you eat. I think just making sure that you don't run out of willpower, right? Willpower, they say, to some extent is a constant. So you got to be careful on what you exert your willpower at, because at the end of the day, when the willpower is diminished, you may not want to do a few things because you just don't have that willpower. But the very awareness that, look, willpower is a constant, and then everything is, I mean, at times it's you on how you want to design things around you, how much effort you want to take. If you keep doing that day in and day out relentlessly, which was my journey on the weight reduction part. I actually put up a whiteboard in front of my dining table, and with a date and my weight, and my kids would laugh at it, because the weight doesn't come down overnight. It takes a while to come down, but there is a process to it. Uh, so I'd say once you look at these different facets of your life, the burnout is manageable.
Very well said. And I have been witness, Deepesh, to your fitness journey. It's not that I probably in the last few years probably you had probably put on the weight, but you were a very active person, and I was really surprised, shocked rather, when I saw you. You was reduced so much, and I saw you after an interval. And I totally endorse what Deepesh is saying, and this is especially important for young managers and mid managers who probably may not have Deepesh's career trajectory. Because if you have a career trajectory like that, there are a lot of things that will keep you busy. So you will probably not get bored, but you may 90% people don't have Deepesh's career trajectory. So you will hit a slump somewhere in your career. And that especially happens when you hit 40 or something like that. And that's where your health also starts going down and your career gets stagnant. And that's where people start ignoring or neglecting their health. They ignore their mental health and physical health both. They don't read enough. They don't expand their worldview. They don't exercise enough. And that's where it starts going downhill. So very important advice, what Deepesh said. You keep yourself sharp mentally and physically both. So, thanks, Deepesh. Thanks for this advice. And the last question, if you would ever write an autobiography, what would you call it?
I haven't thought about it. If I write an autobiography, once I'm at loss for words, I'd probably say serendipity. Wow. Because many things in life, don't happen in a programmatic way, that everything has been aligned and you do this and that's the result. There have been moments in my life where it just so happened, right? There was There was a management presentation that I made as a very young manager, where it was a two-member team, and my partner decided not to join the presentation in the 11th hour. And that was an era when we used to use
This was in Tyco before GE or?
Tyco. This was in Tyco.
Okay.
And I was a young manager, just 5, 6 years into my career. Big management presentation. I got the break. It was on how to make the company a world-class company. We had burnt the midnight oil. We'd really prepared hard. And then there was an issue with my fellow colleague who couldn't make it to the presentation venue. And I had to go solo that day. But then I had people there to help me out with things. It gave me a different air of confidence that I'm alone. That was one moment that kind of changed many things. Often that matter, but many of those occasions when I would be with colleagues in GE at the 7A office, and we would just solve things and move ahead. A few things have happened with me since I've joined Tata Power as well. The first week at work, the team comes and we discuss about opportunities and how we took them forward, or the manufacturing setup that we have and how we keep challenging ourselves. But that element of serendipity is definitely there. So
fantastic word and a title to your career, to your autobiography, Deepesh, because serendipity indeed. Because I before I go to the audience questions, a very quick nugget I want to share. My first first time I saw Deepesh delivering a presentation, it was again with John Flannery, and we were in those times, GE, John was the India CEO, and he would get the functional leaders to come and present to him every week. I think every week or every fortnight, something like that. So Deepesh was the new services leader for India's energy business, and which was a big energy business. We had touched $1 billion at the end of that year. So Deepesh was the services head, and who had come from an outside, from a different industry. So he had an outsider's disadvantage, as they call it. But I saw this gentleman turn that outsider's disadvantage into an advantage, because everybody in that room was playing defensive. Everybody was, because John was very sharp. He would go around the table asking for commitments, etc. From the how much is transportation going to do, how much is power is going to do, how much is CNI going to do, and Deepesh had about, I think, 200 million of a target for the next quarter, and he confidently said that we'll do 200 million. And I now I can tell you, after all these years, Deepesh, there were people who sniggered, who said that how can he do 200 million? He doesn't even understand the industry. And guys, you won't believe, that quarter ended and we signed Bhavana Power in near Delhi, and the order value, you won't believe, it's like law of manifestation. That was $200 million, and Deepesh delivered that 200. So I have seen what he just said. I have seen him walk the talk. So thanks, Deepesh. Great answer. And serendipity is the perfect word for your autobiography. So now I think we should do justice to so many people who are asking questions, Deepesh. I don't know how much time we have. So Aisha is saying, looking forward. Anand is saying hi. Anand is asking you, what are the key leadership qualities that you believe are essential for driving innovation?
And I can say, when you look at innovation, look at elements that contribute towards utilizing technology towards making a huge difference in the outcome of that business result. At times, I feel that innovation is kind of talked more about than what you do about innovation. But once you look at innovation from the prism of actual business results, which is a big gap, people approach for approvals on budgets that look, this is the money that we will spend on innovation, but without having an eye on how you convert that into a market opportunity, right? So looking at innovation from a market opportunity perspective is extremely important. The other is that push your organizations to look at innovation as a business driver. At times, it's a check the box kind of a thing that, look, we're looking at. It's happening a little bit with AI these days, but then we owe the responsibility that when you're looking at innovation, when you're looking at new technology, I think very quickly we should start looking at what will that translate in terms of business outcomes. If that equation is established clearly, then I think the direction is right. And once the direction is right, accelerate, execute it in a time bound manner. One thing that we haven't discussed enough is the element of being timely in the decision making that you do. Business outcomes connected with innovation in a timely manner, I think, is the way to go.
Perfect. Yeah, execution is the key word, and I think you were just. I think last week, I think you were having a conversation with Mr. Harish Bhatt, and where there was one of the questions where you addressed this, and he also said that execution in everything that you do. So execution is very important. So Lavanya, your question is almost similar to to Anand's question. How do you foster a culture of creativity and innovation in the teams at Tata Power? I think Deepesh answered this question. So Rashi is asking, hello, sir. What are some strategies you use to stay updated with the latest trends and technologies in the renewable energy sector?
There is enough material out there for you to read. And the consistency with which you keep in touch with technology is important. I kind of spend the first hour in the morning easily, to catch up with what's happening around me. If I don't do that any particular day, which has seldom happened, then I feel that it's a bad start to my day.
What do you read typically?
I have a full set of reading material that is on an ongoing running basis that I read. I never miss The Economist. I always read The Economist. I begin with the opening brief that The Economist gives you till the letters to the editors. Then I skip the country briefings unless it's a topic of interest on India or a country where there is news out there that I want to go deeper into. And I switch to the business section. I do all of business, I do all of finance, and I do a little bit of culture. Now, it takes me exactly 7 days to probably reach the culture part of that week's Economist, and then the next week starts. So that's something that I've done for the last maybe 15 years or so. I also subscribe to the Financial Times, and I don't let my Financial Times, if I've not read it, it's lying at my office or my home for me to catch up on that. There is one book that I read every day. So I would read like 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 pages every day. There was a time that I used to do 30 books a day, a year, but then depending on the time. So what I'm reading currently is Shift. This is a book on how Nissan and Renault got together. And I'm reading this just given the context of my current position in the organization. And I think that book is an amazing book. It's actually a reread. I also read the complete book on Lean once again, Lean Transformation, before I embarked on this journey of mine with Tata Power. Technology is the question. So within The Economist and the Financial Times, there is a section on renewable energy. And today, with the kind of devices that you have, you can easily filter out the information that you want. Be careful about your time. You can lose your time on the internet. You can lose your life on the internet. So as curated as you can get, and as sharp you can get with the time that you allot to what type of reading that you do, that will take care of you being abreast with what's happening around you.
Do you also listen to podcasts when you're walking or running or whatever? Or is it Shah Rukh Khan songs?
Of late, it's this guy called Anuv Jain. I don't know if you've heard Anuv Jain. Anuv Jain is single solo songs with just a guitar. Fantastic. If you haven't heard Anuv Jain.
Oh, I'll check it out. Okay, I haven't. I'll check it out. Thanks.
I do a lot of Audible, right?
Audible.
But I do Audible only when I am in a situation where I can't hold a book. Sure. Because I like to read books in my own voice, unlike the voice that's fed into my ear. So I don't do Audible. So I would do an Audible if there's a long airport queue. I would just put on Audible because I have my luggage, but I'm still trying to be as productive as I can. So that urge to maximize, I think that's been there. There's a good side to it and there's a bad side to it. But I look at it as a good side. And at times I also question myself that, hey, do you want to take a break? And the answer, is no, because you really want to catch up with as much as you can and to stay live and to stay current. The only downside to that is that you'll end up being very boring company because you end up picking up so much of information that in conversations, you'll end up talking about what you've read, what you've heard, do you know this, do you know that? So just be careful about that.
But it's not boring at all. I mean, we've when we converse and I've spoken to you, it's a pleasure listening to you. I mean, you have such an eclectic platter of information that you so generously share. So I think that's great. And one thing which you mentioned on the culture part, which you reached to the last seventh day of the week, I think that's new because. Reading about the cultural part of the industry information is a new thing, and that's a learning for me. So I'll try to implement that, Deepesh. Thank you so much. So Meera is asking, what role does digital transformation play in the renewable energy sector, and how is Tata Power adapting to these changes?
Digital massive. I think it's all about digital actually. All these devices come together in a platform where there's enormous amount of modeling that goes into how you design your plants to meet that load curve. When it comes to manufacturing, we have this huge manufacturing plant where we have a digital twin that maps all the manufacturing processes. It's a high automation plant. We're also using AI. So these days, when you get a 500,000 page tender, we process the tender through an AI tool, which tells us all the key elements of the tender and so on. So digital today is, a very front and center thing of any organization. For you to be at the cutting edge of digital is something that goes without saying. But again, as young leaders, insist on what value you'll drive from going digital and keep emphasizing, right, the need for going digital. The more you do, the better for the business.
And implementing and adapting it into real business scenario is very important, because we've seen when digital for the sake of digital doesn't always work, because it becomes a fad. And what you just said, that very very practical example, like adapting it to reading a 500 page tender and stuff like that, that's where we have to leverage that. So the next questions, I need to move into.
Yeah, I'll just be very quick on the digital piece. There are also a few tools that we use in our daily lives that can be put to good use, for business. Like, for example, in any organization, there's a hierarchy, right? You can use digital to address issues that that somebody who is in the middle of the hierarchy is today wanting to express something to the senior hierarchy. The digital tools can help you eliminate the hierarchy to a large extent. As an example, we have like 45 projects ongoing in India currently, different parts of the country. We have an employee strength of 12,000 people. We have 5,000 people on our rolls, and the balance are on contract. Now, how do you make sure that the entire organization is pulling in the same direction, right, when it comes to the execution of a project, right from engineering to supply chain to, manufacturing, execution, construction? All of us need to come together to execute a project. And hence, what we have done is that we've got secure WhatsApp groups where everybody gets information at the same time. So for every project, we might have those 35, 40 people across the hierarchy who get real-time information on what's happening on that project. And you don't have to wait for an email that's copied only to a few people, and then you forget copying somebody. You have to forward an email, or there's this element that you're hesitant that should I copy my manager's manager or not. All that is completely eliminated through a simple WhatsApp group. An example on how to use digital.
Superb. It's such a great example of boundarylessness in leadership. I mean, that's how you eliminate bureaucracy and hurdles, because we see all this decision paralysis because of all this, what Deepesh mentioned. Should we copy him or her? What would he or she think? And should I put this? So you eliminate all that. Great tool. I think I'll try this out, Deepesh. So
then, if you have doubts that what happens with information security, answer that question upfront. Get your IT leaders involved. Let them know that you're doing this. Let them know that it has to be end-to-end encrypted, purely, completely secure. There's no information leakage. Because at times, a few digital tools are discouraged because of the issue of security. It's real that there are hackers out there, but get your IT folks involved, right? And end up using the technology rather than not using it.
Sure, of course. Yeah. Technology is supposed to be serving us, and we need to make the most of it. Siddhi is asking you, how do you inspire and motivate your team during challenging times or industry downturns? And Siddheshwar also asks that a significant moment in your leadership journey where that shaped your approach to leadership because of challenges. So I think similar questions.
I would say, the leader needs to perform himself or herself, right? You need to demonstrate how it is done, right? Once you do that, people will be inspired. I mean, they will also get to learn on how to do it. So it's all about folding your own sleeves, demonstrating that you can do it. Tough assignments is the way to go. That's where best happiness from solving the problem that we had discussed comes out of. Always an opportunity for you to demonstrate the best skills that you have, right? We did talk about an industry headwind that we faced. There are headwinds today as well, but the lack of ideas is my biggest worry. If you have ideas, if you get people together, right? If you have a cross-functional team, and then once you have a set of ideas, you should have the tenacity to execute on each one of them. Many conversations happen, right? But after those nice conversations, the follow through isn't there. But if you stick to the agenda and if you come back every day and if you keep hammering that idea out every day, that look, if you felt that this was true for us to do, then as a leader, just be consistent, maintain that routine. And if you do it every week consistently, I tell you, you will definitely win. So what we did in the beginning of this year is that we got my staff and we did something called the scorecard or the KPIs or the goals and objectives, as organizations may call. Also got every leader to look at the goals and objectives of the other leaders so that there is a good horizontal connect between the leaders. Once we did that, we signed off the goals and objectives. And this time we printed it as a hardbound book in glossy paper. And that went out with a nice shirt, a small gift, and that booklet. And then what we have now done is that we've converted that into our monthly operating review, where we only go through those KPIs every month and nothing else. There are other meetings that could happen. But in the monthly operating review, we consistently just review those KPIs for the respective businesses. Now, you do this consistently, the alignment happens. And if the alignment happens, whatever be the issue out there in the market, if you have agreed that, look, this is the way we have to go and solve it, and if you do it consistently, month in, month out, I tell you, the chances of you being successful are bright.
What a wonderful and old school idea this is. I mean, I can completely visualize this thing, that hardbound book that you said, and if it's lying on everybody's office and they are going for the same meeting every week, and it's amazing. Thanks, great idea, Deepesh. Shantanu is asking you, what are the current challenges and solutions Tata Power is pursuing in terms of energy storage to complement renewable energy sources?
Energy storage is a fascinating area. I think battery energy storage is fascinating. All the technology and chemistry around the cathode is fascinating. And I use the word fascinating because of the cost curve, right? In 2022, the cost of electricity in terms of cost of storage was like 20 rupees per kilowatt hour. In 2023, that came down to like 12 rupees per kilowatt hour. In 2024, we executed a contract for SECI in Chhattisgarh, 120 megawatt, 2 hours, 240 megawatt hours at 7 rupees and 10 paise kilowatt hour. In 2024 now, we've seen two tenders from the Gujarat government, one which was won at 4 rupees and 38 paise. And recently, in the month of June, the last tender was won at 3 rupees and 60 paise or 3 rupees and 68 paise. So look at the cost curve. You talk of Moore's law, this kind of defies even Moore's law. And it's real. So I think battery storage is here to stay. There's a shift in the technology, and I think technology will keep advancing. We use LFP today. So I'd say that there's no particular challenge when it comes to the use of battery technology, other than a potential supply chain challenge that could be from China. But having said that, I was there in China last month, and they have built their factories to export. So they'll always be there in the market to make material available. We should embark on this opportunity, and we should have battery storage to complement wind and solar and offer the lowest cost of electricity, increase the PLF. So if you have a problem statement that how can you give high megawatt electricity at high PLF at a cost, all green, zero carbon, I think battery energy storage plays a huge role in this. And then after that, you have pumped hydro. So if you want long duration, then it's pumped hydro. Tata Power has announced that we are investing in a 1.8 gigawatt pumped hydro storage plant. So anything above 4 hours, is pumped hydro. But I'm really excited with what we are seeing in the battery energy storage world.
Awesome. I think, and Tata Power is probably positioned the most favorably in India to have an end-to-end kind of an offering in the entire renewable energy space, from solar to wind to battery storage and everything else. So, and I think with a leader like you, I'm sure that it's going to do all that. So, Pawan has a question for me. Pawan, so I'll probably thanks for the question and your kind words, Pawan. But this is more about Deepesh, so I'll try to skip the question about me. You can get in touch with me separately, and we'll talk about your question for me. But he's asking you that, Deepesh sir, I hope this message finds you well. As a devoted follower and a big fan as well, I would be most grateful if you would kindly share with me how you typically plan and structure your day, your insights, your experience. I think you answered this in a previous way where you were talking work-life balance. And the last question here, because others are comments, so I think you have to rush. So the last question is, Amitabha Goswami is saying, very sharp understanding of technology and management capabilities indeed. Pleasure listening to the speaker and brilliant anchoring by Ayon, etc. So I think they're all, there's a lot of comments, Deepesh, coming in at which was expected. So thank you so much for sharing great insights, not just about the industry, but the human being that you are, and that's the reason you are so celebrated as a leader, and you need to know this, because once you reach that C-suite corner office, people normally lose touch with the troops. You're not one of them, so I know, so that's great, and great to know you, Deepesh, and for the last 14 years. And I wanted to translate some of the learnings I've had from you for the viewers of this show, because this show is called Towards a Better World, because like I said, that only way you can create a better world is be the change yourself, or bring the right change makers as role models. So you are a role model for thousands, Deepesh, and thanks for being you. So thank you for being on the show, and thanks to the viewers for taking time to join us, and all the best, Deepesh, to you and Tata Power team. Thank you.